Welcome, beautiful friends, to the Way of Mastery. We are deepening. Can you guys see me? I can't see. I have to look this way to see you. My joy's getting bigger, and my clown's noses are expanding. It's a beautiful symbol for my consciousness getting started here. Bam! This one's so big I can barely hold it on. It's just too heavy. Welcome, beautiful friends, to the Way of Mastery. Tonight we begin our deepening of lesson number 11, a meditation into the heart of Christ. This lesson will only require 2 deepenings. Time-wise, it's about the same length as all the others, but this one, because the tone and tenor he took when delivering this meditation, there are a lot fewer words. So we'll get through it in 2 deepenings. This meditation is incredibly powerful, and it is chock full of enlightenment. So I will do the best that I can to illuminate those clues for you. You know, the thing is, God's not hidden from any of us. It's not. It's everywhere, and it's everything. And it's everything that we can see and perceive, and it's just the whole kit and caboodle. It's literally all that is, and we miss it. That's the miraculous thing, that we can actually perceive that we're a part. Anyway, but we'll have fun with this tonight. So a meditation into the heart of Christ. We've began the pathway in the first 4 or 5 lessons. He established the 4 axioms to the pathway, which I have covered in depth in the first 10 lessons. We're not going to go into them much tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about love. He defines love as love allows all things, accepts all things, trusts all things, embraces all things, and is therefore transcendent of all things. So the God self that is present within you now has allowed every thought you've ever thought, every dream you've ever dreamed, every judgment you've ever judged. Allowed every one of them. It's accepted them all. It's trusted that they're all okay. It has embraced them all and held you in its eternal embrace, and has forever remained transcendent, simply awaiting your recognition. He said it in the Course in Miracles this way, that love merely waits on your welcome. It's just so close, and we're already so it, that we don't often recognize it. And when you do, it'll make all the difference for you. But we're going to start tonight with our 5 minutes of abiding as Christ. He established this at the end of lesson number 9, that this is the foundational practice. And in that lesson, he asked us like 10 times, it's only 5 minutes. Will you please take 5 minutes to begin to do this practice, to consciously abide as Christ? No matter what your body, mind may say, acknowledge, I and the Father are one, and I am the source of all that I see, all that I feel, all that I think, all that I experience, that there is nothing outside of me which is causing my experience. There's nothing outside of me that can cause me to have an experience that I don't choose to have. So he's asking us to start with this for 5 minutes. Usually when we start, we find it hard to give it our attention for just 5 minutes. But then you get 5 minutes, and before you know it, you're having such a joyful time with 5 minutes, you don't even know it becomes 10. And then it just builds on itself, and it comes to a point where something mystically happens in your being, and poof, the identity shifts, and you just abide as Christ, and you'll be at peace. So, Cindy?
Begin now to utilize some time each day, without letting a day go by, in which you sit with yourself. Sit with you and start by acknowledging that you are one with God. Give yourself 5 minutes to choose, to practice choosing how you will experience sitting in a chair. Practice sitting in a chair as an infinite creator of exactly what you are experiencing in your emotional field. Utilize this very process as a symbol of preparing the mind for the dropping of a pebble into it, out of which will reverberate the vibrations or ripples that will come back to you. Therefore, where you are in this moment, look around. Look at the objects that you see. Look at the people that you see around you, if there are any. Whatever sounds may be coming into your field of awareness, whatever pictures or ideas you may hold of what you are or what the world is, these are all fleeting and temporary illusions. They will pass away, and began passing away the moment they were created. Look at all that is around you, and decide what value it holds for you. Will you see it as something that you must have in your existence? Or will you choose to see it as something you've playfully drawn to yourself? You appreciate it, and it can be gone tomorrow, and your peace will not be disturbed. Which way will you view the world? It begins with 5 minutes, in which you acknowledge that you can create whatever experience you want, a feeling that floods through your awareness as a quality of thought that you allow to keep repeating in the mind. You can sit in a chair as an awakened Christ now. For just 5 minutes, experience yourself as Christ, crystallizing a body as a temporary teaching and learning communication device, plopping itself into a chair in a totally neutral corner of creation because you want to have the experience of sitting blissfully at peace and your perfect knowledge of your union with God in this moment.
So he says, therefore, start with I and the Father are one. He said this 2 different ways when he was incarnate. Seek first the kingdom and be vigilant for the kingdom. Start at the truth. It's a very short journey to heaven when you just start there. If we start with, oh, I'm my name, I'm my story, I'm all this stuff, I'm just this body, I'm just this victim, we will set up what seems an eternal journey to find ourselves to the kingdom. So he's simply saying, start with the truth. At first, it may just be words that mean nothing to you. I and the Father are one. Or there may be great resistance to even believing that. But the more you're willing to open to that and rest in that in the 5 minutes of meditation, it will start to flower for you. So we're actually going to take our 5 minutes together now. Shanti Christo, the peace of Christ. Welcome back. You're free to abide as Christ for the rest of the hour. You don't have to, not do that. Okay, we're going to do the Aramaic Lord's Prayer. For those of you who haven't heard this, this is JM, who was the channel for this pathway, speaking the original Lord's Prayer as Jeshua spoke it when he walked the world. It's very powerful energetically. And then afterwards, Cindy will read Yeshua's English translation through JM of the prayer, which is very different than the one the world's aware of.
Avun, the Boshmaya, Nita Kadash Shamach, Tete Malkuda, Neve Sivinach, Akina the Boshmaya O Baraha, Haulan Lachman, Zunkanan Yaumana, Boshwoklan Halpin, Akina Dapanan, Shwakin Il Hayabin. Ula talan el mission, el pasan membisha. But all the lachim el kuta, uhaila, utish bhakta. La alam, amin, amen.
Father, Mother of the cosmos, shimmering light of all, focus your light within us as we breathe your holy breath. Enter the sanctuary of our hearts, uniting within us the sacred rays of your power and beauty. Let your heart's desire unite heaven and earth through our sacred union. Help us fulfill what lies within the circle of our lives today. Forgive our secret fears, as we freely choose to forgive the secret fears of others. Let us not enter forgetfulness, tempted by false appearances. For from your astonishing fire comes the eternal song which sanctifies all, renewed eternally in our lives and throughout creation. We seal these words in our hearts, committed in trust and faith. Amen.
That first line, Father, Mother of the cosmos. Cosmos was the word used back then to describe all that is manifest, all that is unmanifest. So it's not referring to the physical cosmos. It's referring to the totality of creation, that which gives birth to all things. But here we go. You ready, Cindy?
Now we begin. Indeed, greetings unto you, beloved friends. Join me in this moment. Join me in this hour. Join with me in the place where alone two minds can join. For the body cannot bring you to where I am, as it cannot bring you to where your beloved is. Join with me, then, in the silent place of the heart, in which all wisdom already abides. Join with me, then, in this moment, in the place prepared for us of our Creator before time is. Join with me by choosing now to allow your attention to relax from the things of the world. Allow the eyes to gently close as a symbol of your willingness to set aside your involvement with and your attachment to the things of this created world. Join with me by allowing the body to be set free. This requires only that you make no demands upon it. Indeed, let it settle in, as though it were becoming again the dust of the ground from which it came. Join with me as you let your attention recede from the world around you. Begin to notice the thoughts that seem to stream through the mind. Join with me by moving ever yet deeper, as though you were allowing your attention to settle down into the heart. And as the thoughts would seem to stream through the mind, can you tell from whence they've come? Can you tell where they've gone? They arise in a moment and fade away in a moment, while you continue to relinquish your attachment to all things of the world.
Well, there's a pretty common theme tonight to begin this meditation. Join with me, join with me, join with me, join with me, join with me. 6, 7 times, join with me. Course in Miracles, he has an extended discourse about healing happens in joining, when we consciously surrender our desire to be separate and we join in love. Now, in the world, the ego misinterprets that and says bodies need to get together. He's asking you to join him in the infinite space of consciousness as the one I am, where the only place where two minds can join, because we're really conjoined. We were created maybe like we seem to have individual expressions, but we're inseparable, like conjoined twins that are connected. And they're interrelated. So we're already in truth conjoined. It's when we abandon, I think I'm separate, therefore I have to do something in order to join. What he's really asking you to do is to not do. Because our doing only arises out of our misidentification that I'm separate and I have to do something in order to join. That action that arises out of I must do something to join is reaffirming the separation, and we don't even recognize it. We often effort, and he gets to the point when he talks about the body, you just relax your attention. You make no demands, you make no effort to join, because it's the most fundamental thing in creation and it is already joined. We abandon all the efforts to join. Join with me then in the silent place of the heart where all wisdom already resides. Of course, in Miracles and the Way of Mastery, these pathways, he refers to that as the mind of God, the silent space from which all of creation is arising. The unmanifest, if you will, the pregnant void, it's called a lot of things, where all of creation is being constantly, ceaselessly, infinitely, powerfully, creatively birthed, to rest into that space. And he calls it the heart. Of course, it has nothing whatsoever to do with the physical heart. There's a whole lot of intelligence within this form. There's this whole heart math thing about that's really the center of intelligence. You can use the heart of the body in this area as a symbol, because you can pick up a lot of vibration and feeling and knowing through the heart chakra. But the point is, it's not the physical heart. That's just a symbol of us moving from our thinking mind down, moving from the things of manifest creation down, and being willing to rest in the silence that is the unmanifest. And of course, the manifest creation never leaves the silence. It expresses within it. It's not like the silence births creation out from itself. It is an all-encompassing silence and presence. So he's simply asking you to join him there, which is not a place, but it is something that the action of the joining is a surrendering, a letting go, a relaxing into, not an efforting, not a striving, not a, quote, doing. And he asked you to simply let the body relax, let the body be set free. Is there anyone here who is having to expend any conscious awareness to maintain the functionality of the body, to maintain its balance, to maintain its digestion? None of us have to put any attention whatsoever on the body, and it will take absolutely great care of itself. You don't even have to watch the breath. You can simply, truly, truly relax. Now, usually we're so focused and so attentive to our body, when we try and relax kind of underneath it, there'll be a contraction because it's like a sense of falling, because we're letting go of something that we're really used to binding our attention to. But it's really about just relaxing. The body will take care of itself just fine, which, by the way, it does every night when you sleep. He's just simply asking you to do that same thing, but remain aware and not fall into sleep. In this pathway, he talks a lot about the world. And I want to be really clear that the vast majority of the time he defines world, he's not talking about the planet Earth. He's talking about the world that you have created within your own mind, all your thoughts, behaviors, feelings, perceptions, judgments, the created world which is unique for each and every one of us. So he wants your attention to recede from the world that you have created, and you've created that within your own thoughts. So he's asking you to drop your identification with the thoughts and the thinker. He'll get to that in just a little bit. And let the thoughts, just notice them as they're streaming through the mind. Just notice them. Because so many people attempt to meditate and then they want to think only meditation means that no thoughts. I have to have no thoughts or I'm not meditating. Well, you can have a whole incredible stream of thoughts and be at perfect peace, so long as you don't attach to the thoughts. The simplest meditation he gave me when he started working with me on my pathway was to simply say yes to the thought. There's a thought, I'm an asshole. Yes. There's a thought, I need to do something tomorrow. Yes. There's a thought, I don't know how to meditate. Yes. There's the thought, I'm never going to get this. Yes. You don't need to change them. You don't need to alter them. Just let them be. So it was just a way of changing the way I was interacting with my own thoughts. I'm not saying yes like I approve that thought and I want more of it. It's just saying I recognize your presence. I know you've come and I know you're going. Just saying yes. Simple. Simple. It was just this beautiful yes meditation. You can sit for 20 minutes and not be in inner conflict because you're only saying yes. That's pretty peaceful. It's a nice way to start. So, can anyone tell me where the thoughts come from? Or where they go? And I don't know, how long do they last? A moment. And boy, we imbue something that comes from nowhere and disappears to nowhere and is present in our consciousness that much time. We give it an incredible amount of reality and power. An incredible amount of reality and power. So much so that we identify our very self with thoughts that appear as a mystery and disappear into mystery and shine literally across the screen of our awareness for just a flash. But we've focused all of our Christed attention on that screen for so long, our whole lives, that we think we are those thoughts. And we even think we're the thinker of those thoughts. He's going to get to that a little bit later. So he's just trying to point here, if you think you're the thinker, tell me what your next thought's going to be. Do you know? Can you predict it? If you're the thinker, shouldn't you know? Shouldn't you know which ones come? You're not the thinker. He'll get to that in a bit. While you continue to relinquish your attachment to all the things of the world, the inner world that you have created, the perceptional filters with which you look upon yourself and you look upon all of creation, you continue to relinquish your attachment to that. That's what the whole spiritual pathway is. That's the undoing of the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. You heard, the Buddhists call it a lot non-attachment. Doesn't just mean attachment to things. It means even attachment to the beliefs and the thoughts that stream ceaselessly sometimes through your consciousness. So it's really important to understand how he defines world in this pathway. He'll get to it later in some other lessons where he'll say, he's never said that the earth isn't real. He's never saying that the earth is not a creation. He's saying the earth was created, it was birthed, and it will end. So ultimately it's not real, because things that are birthed in time and end in time are not reality, because only reality is that which defined in this pathway as the mind of God that gives birth to all those things that is before time and after time, which is where he's pointing us to in this silence. There's one thing that you can trust unequivocally on the spiritual path, and that's silence. You need no discernment ever to know that silence is absolutely true. You can get into a whole lot of confusion and debate between thoughts. Which one's an ego thought? Which one's a Christ thought? Which one's this thought? Which one's that thought? Ultimately, you can trust wholly and completely the silence. It has never lied to you, and it will never lie to you. So he's giving some very simple and practical tips for how to enter a meditative state, about what you're relinquishing, about how to do it, and about don't even bother with your thoughts. I mean, nothing he does on any of his pathways are complex. Nothing is complex in his pathways. It's all utterly simple. I mean, it's so simple you can't really go teach Christ in meditation over a 5-day weekend, a 5-day seminar, and get people to pay for it because it's just so basic. So everybody learns to run to meditate with all these techniques that are a whole lot of damn work. A whole lot of work. You can pat yourself on the back when you've mastered the technique, but you're still the doer of the technique. So join with me. He'll get to it later, but that me, join with him in that silence, in that one undifferentiated consciousness that is the I am. I want to be very clear. Undifferentiated doesn't mean that it doesn't have individuated expression. It's not that there's just one I am and everyone else disappears. It's like a diamond with infinite facets. You can't separate the facet from the diamond unless you label it and give it a name. Otherwise, it's just an expression of the diamond. So each of you have an eternal, individuated expression of divinity, just as Jeshua does, as I do, everyone does. So if you got fears about disappearing into an amorphous blob, that's all just ego fear to try and keep you from discovering the truth of who you are.
Verily I say unto you, even though the thoughts that arise and stream through the mind ceaselessly are of the world, settle down then, abiding in the gentle quiet of the heart. You do not cause the physical heart to beat and send the blood through the body. It simply knows, and it does. You do not cause the breath to flow through the body. It arises and passes away. It does not require your attention. And in this moment, is it you that keeps the stars in the sky above you? Is it you that keeps your beautiful planet, your Earth, spinning, hurtling through space, around and around your central sun, never deviating very much at all from the same orbit it's been in since its creation? Must you attend to the quiet, unseen way in which the flowers outside your window are growing? Can you hear the sound of the grass as it grows? Somewhere, in this very moment, a child has been birthed. Are you aware of it? Indeed, all of creation continues to go on in an eternal dance, mystery giving birth to mystery, returning to mystery without ceasing. And yet, you simply abide in a quiet place within the sanctuary of the heart. Join with me now in perfect peace. Join with me where alone we can remember that we are together. Give up all hope of directing yourself to me by taking thought. Join with me in the simple understanding that of yourself you can do nothing. Join with me by surrendering into the truth of a union beyond all comprehension. Settle deeply into the quiet sanctuary of the heart we share.
Verily, he's saying truly, truly, like unquestionably truth. He says unto you, even the thoughts that stream through your mind are of the world. They are of your inner world created thing. They are not real. They don't have any permanence to them whatsoever. You can't even, can you show a thought to someone? Have you really considered what thought is? It's a momentary flash of perception. It has no substance, it has no mass, it has no shape, it has no reality save that which you imbue it with. And we can imbue thought with incredible meaning and incredible value. Go back to the Course in Miracles when he said, you give everything the meaning it has for you. A word pops through your mind, or a series of words called a sentence or a paragraph, and you create a whole experience. It can break your heart, or it can make you dance with joy. And you don't even know what it is or where it comes from. So we talked a little bit about the action of the body. All these things are simply knowing and doing. He goes on to talk about the stars in the sky and the beautiful planet. The infinite intelligence of the mind of God is doing everything. The thinker that you think you are in your mind, what does it do? If you raise your arm, did the thinker do that? Or did this greater intelligence do it? How did the thinker do it? What does the thinker do except think itself into an illusionary existence? So all of creation goes on just fine. No separation has ever occurred, save we've become identified with a string of words, string of thoughts moving through our consciousness. Right in the middle of heaven, we have always been and will always be, but we're just misidentified with what you are. Because all of these things are happening just fine. And they happen with incredible beauty and unimaginable precision. He talks about the Earth's orbit hasn't deviated much since its creation. If you talk about the birth of the cosmos, we're talking billions of years. You know what kind of intelligence it takes to be that present and that perfect in that level of execution? And that's just on the solar system level. We'll take that down to every molecule in your body, which is like a solar system. It has a central sun and then has spinning electrons around it like planets. It doesn't take long for you to recognize there's an intelligence beyond anything you could ever comprehend that's doing everything just fine. And we want to say, I don't want God's will. I want to maintain my will. It's unconscionable what we do sometimes. It's really amazing how far we've fallen from the tree and have convinced ourselves that we actually do have an individuated, separate identity, and that I'm not sure I want God's will. But I can't really find where my thoughts come from, where they go, or that I can actually do anything except think I think. So you abide in the quiet place within the sanctuary of the heart. So he's asking you to wake up that you never have been apart from God, you never have been separate, and then you can be in this world but not of it. You can be in creation, experiencing creation, but not within the world that you created that insists that you're separate and that your existence needs to continue to be separate. Give up all hope of directing yourself to me by taking thought. Give up all hope of directing yourself to me by taking thought. How many of you have experienced on your pathway the egoic mind trying to get it, trying to understand it, come to a conscious, I know what that means? The concepts mean nothing. That's why it begins with con. It's a joke. You're pulling one on yourself. You simply abandon the belief that your thinking mind can do anything or can know anything. This is sobering for the thinker. This is not good news for the ego. Give up all hope of directing yourself to God by any more thoughts. Even if all your thoughts are only positive, you will be no closer to God. Because you can't get away from God. You're already as close as you'll ever be. You just don't realize it. Because we follow the bouncing ball of thought. Thinking. Oh, I got to read this. I got to do this meditation more. Then. All of that is a distraction to the kingdom, the peace that is within you now, which is what He's trying to get you to touch with this meditation. Join with me in the simple understanding that of yourself you can do nothing. So just sit without using some faculty of creation like the body, which, by the way, God's doing all the stuff the body does. Just by taking thought, make the coffee. Just by taking thought, make anything happen except more thinking. So, abandon thinking. Join me in surrendering into the truth of a union beyond all comprehension. Again, for those of us who started very heavily mind-identified with the Course in Miracles, this is another crusher for the ego. You mean it's not about understanding it? My 20-year study to understand it means nothing? Yeah, it means nothing. The concepts can be used by the Spirit, beliefs can be used by the Spirit to point us to the experience of the truth. But a concept and a belief is not the truth. They are completely lousy substitutes for the truth. But oftentimes we hang our identity on our beliefs. And if you haven't noticed, your current beliefs were not the ones you had 5 years ago. They weren't the ones you had 20 years ago. So what makes the ones you have now so holy? You're not going to believe them in 5 years. Wake up and you'll never believe them again. You won't have need for belief. You won't have need to try and conceptualize reality because you'll experience it. Settle deeply into the quiet sanctuary of the heart that we share. Because in that place of silence where there's pure presence, there's no I, and that means there's no you, there's no separation. But yet each and every one of us can touch and abide that place right now and at all moments of now. And allow that truth to live the life that we thought was our own. How about you, Cindy? Can you hear the sound of the grass as it grows? He had me sit on the front porch for 2 days one time to see if I could hear the sound of the grass as it grows. Do you know the only time I thought I could was when a thought said, I hear it. Would I take the bait and believe the thought? I did. I took the bait, believed the thought. But it wasn't true. Do you see where I'm headed with that? It wasn't true, but we hear the thoughts and we believe the thoughts. We believe the thoughts tell us what's true and what's not true. not what our direct experiences are.
That heart is the depth and the essence of the Creator's only creation. And that creation is pure mind, pure being, pure intelligence, the fulfillment of all wisdom, the depth of all compassion, the certainty of every purpose under heaven. Rest with me, join with me, and acknowledge that our minds are joined. And as you rest again, you might notice that thoughts seem to arise and pass away. But do you not sense them now, as though they were coming from a place where you are not, as though you had sunk more deeply to a place of quiet beneath the surface upon which thoughts flow back and forth without ceasing? Are you then the thoughts? No, you are not. Are you even the thinker of the thoughts? No, you are not. You are merely that quiet, that presence, that observes all of creation flowing through a field of awareness which is the mind of Christ. Unlimited forever are you. Unchanging forever are you. Perfectly changeless are you. You are of one substance, one light, and one truth. Here alone does reality reside, for here alone is reality remembered. Here alone love reigns supreme. Here alone is where you are.
The heart is the depth of the essence of the Creator's only creation, the one begotten holy child of God. An infinite field of pure awareness, pure intelligence, pure being that ceaselessly is present, giving birth to all things. Time, space are even concepts which arise out of this state of pure being. That's why he said, I am the Alpha and the Omega, just as each of us is that same I am, not as the body-mind with our name, but as our very essence of being, our most basic, fundamental aspect of who we are. Rest with me, join with me, and acknowledge that our minds are joined. If you don't acknowledge that your mind is actually one with His, with God, and with all of creation, that's why guidance for a lot of people is really hard to hear, because they're insisting to believe my mind is mine. It's separate, it's private, it's apart from everything else. And of course the ego wants it that way, because if you look at the content of that mind, you don't want anybody knowing it. You don't want anybody knowing that my mind, oh my gosh, everybody can see my mind. It's not my private mind. My thoughts actually aren't private. Nope, never are, never have been. So it helps when you acknowledge that your minds are joined. That can drop a big barrier to people who have trouble hearing guidance, hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit or Jeshua or God or your higher self, whatever name you want to put on it, is acknowledge our minds are one, so this shouldn't be hard. There isn't a barrier unless I'm creating an artificial barrier because I'm trying to protect my separate identity, to protect my mind and keep it private. So he's asking, rest there, and even though thoughts seem to come and go, they can almost seem like they're in a radio playing in another room. When you really drop in to this state of being, you probably will still hear thoughts, but you'll not identify with them because you'll be resting rather than the acute focus that is putting its attention on the stream of thought. And it is a quiet place. It is spooky friggin' quiet. When you first start hitting it in your mind, that thinks it thinks will be scared to death, because that space is death to the thinking mind. Because there's no life for the thinker in this unified field of being, in pure intelligence and silent stillness. God, we call it so many things. There's so many teachers that are pointing to it, but we keep thinking about it and keep thinking our thoughts about it will tell us what it is, which of course it can't. Because when I started touching that space, I saw a lot of thoughts of, this is boring. Screw this. This is what it's all about. This is the all that is silence. Shit, I don't want any of this. Just forget this. This is boring. Get out of here. And all of those were attempting to draw my awareness away from this truth to the things, to the thoughts. Anything to get me from resting into this. Because when you begin to rest in it and you begin to experience its peace, your beingness is going to very naturally want to be drawn back into that peace. You're not going to be satisfied with the 30-minute meditation. It's going to start to awaken the soul and the soul's presence, so to speak, and you're going to want more and more and more and more. And at some point, revelation births in your consciousness through that silence. And revelation isn't words. You'll have revelation and the mind will immediately want to quantify it, qualify it, and put words on it and put meanings on it. It's a direct knowing. If everyone's here experienced revelation, everybody has. It's an aha. And you feel it. That's one of the things that feels so good. It's almost kind of like a mini orgasm. You're like, oh, wow, I get it. This feels great. But it's about being present where revelation can happen. If you're identified with the thinker, you've drawn your attention way far away from the base, the ground, the silence, if you will, from which revelation will arise. So the more you rest in that silence, the more is naturally revealed. So here he says very clearly, are you then the thoughts? Are you then, no you're not. Are you then the thinker of the thoughts? No, you're not. The ego has a very deep investment in keeping you believing, one, you're the thinker of the thoughts, and two, you're guilty for the damn thoughts you're thinking. Now that's a pretty good trap, wouldn't it be? To keep you identified with the thinking, that you're the thinker, and then keep you incessantly managing the thoughts, all as a distraction so that you won't drop in to what's already present. It will tell you in those thoughts, oh, once you fix the ego, once you reform the ego, once you only have positive thoughts, once you stop thoughts, whatever, then maybe you'll know God. All of that is a distraction to keep you identified with the thinking as though you were the thinker, when you could simply relax. Axiom number 2, I need do nothing. And relax without even efforting to relax. Because if you're trying to relax, that's not very relaxing. And just rest into this silence and allow revelation, remembrance, where two minds can join in remembrance, let it be birthed in your awareness. The ego will want to attempt to do that through thought ad nauseum. Rest, rest, rest. Rest in peace is not an after-death thing. Can be experienced moment to moment to moment to moment. So that quiet presence that observes all of creation flowing through the field of awareness, which is the mind of Christ. So behind the story of Debbie and Rosie Maria and Bob and everyone else, there's one infinite consciousness that's looking through every set of eyes. That is everything in creation. That's every unmanifested thing. That's every unmanifested potential. That's why you've heard, especially in Ayurveda, you look only upon yourself. But we don't see ourself, we see I think I'm a thinker, so I think that you must also be a thinker, and I think I'm this, so you have to think you're that. So we're looking through perceptual filters all the time. Said in the Bible, the scales will fall from your eyes. Your big worldly perceptions, which are coloring, taking reality, which is one, and breaking it up into all kinds of things. Different bodies, different names, different labels, different judgments, goods, bads, right, wrongs, wants, needs, past, future. That falls, and there is creation. All of it. Radiant. Doing just fine without you needing to help. So, unlimited forever, because mind, if you will, even if you take the mind you think with, you recognize, even if you think, well, I'm not a very smart person, you recognize that the function of mind is unlimited. I mean, just look at what's happened in technology in this world in the last century. It's been pretty damn quantum leap unlimited. Unchanging forever. Thoughts change, ideas change, but mind itself is. It simply is. Perfectly changeless. The mind of God in its omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence already is all that could ever be because it's infinite mind. It's the source of all consciousness. And that's all everything is. We think things are solid, we call them matter, but they're all ideas in the mind of God. They're all consciousness expressed in manifestation. They're not actually solid with all the properties that we think. So here alone is reality remembered. Here alone, the only place reality is remembered. Not on the pages of A Course in Miracles, not on the pages of even the Way of Mastery. There alone, in the Christ mind, or the mind of God, whatever you want to call it, that is the only place reality is remembered. And you get there by simply stopping it. Stopping everything that you think you need to do in order to get there. Because all of that is a distraction away from it. Love reigns supreme. Here alone is where you are. You're actually that space, filling yourself with the dream that you're a thinker. That you're the thoughts that you think you think. You've never been apart from heaven. You've never left heaven. I think in the Course in Miracles he said it's like you're sleeping, you're having a dream while you're safely at home in bed. But we're just so caught up in that we don't actually rest into this field of revelation.
And in this place that is everywhere at once, and in this eternity that embraces every moment of time, what do we discover? What is it that we share? It is not a body, for bodies are limited, being temporary expressions of the coalescence of thought. It is not the body that we can share. Look yet more deeply. Is it the thoughts that still dance upon the surface far above you? No. What is it then that binds us one to another as one another? Is it not the silence and the awareness of the one who observes the rising and passing away of all created things? I share with you the depth of a perfect silence. I share with you a wisdom supreme. I abide as you are, the thought of love in form. To be in form does not mean to be a body. It means only that that mind, which is the reality of love's existence, truly abides within each of us equally. And if this were not so, you could not recognize me. And when I speak a word or a sentence or a paragraph that resonates within you as being the truth, you could not know it was so if that truth did not already live within you as the reality of your very existence.
Look more deeply than the thoughts, more deeply than the concepts, more deeply than the beliefs, more deeply than all things that can change, all things that can evolve and grow. Because there's a whole lot of energy about the growth of your soul. He's very clear in all his pathways that God extended itself in this one offspring already whole, the carbon copy of the Father. It's not like we were birthed as tiny little baby ignorant God souls and we would be on an infinite journey to become like the Father. Know that the Father gave us its full inheritance, extended all that is to us. We're actually using that level of creative power to express in creation, in and as the dream of separation. So we have to abandon all the becoming, because those are strategies of I'm not what God created and therefore I must become it over time. Just another way that we get trapped. So bodies are limited, being temporary expression of the coalescence of thought. We held these thoughts in our omniscient mind that we were separate, because when the dream of separation started, there weren't bodies. But because we're so powerful, we held the thought of our separation so long with so much power that eventually we gave birth, the Big Bang, we gave birth to a realm that seemed to mirror back to us what it was we had already chosen to think and believe. And then once we found our awareness limited to a body, and we were then not only did separation seem real, it seemed undeniably obvious. It seemed unquestionably real. It's still not so, but man, have we created a very realistic facsimile. Really, really, really compelling. It's if we didn't have created it this way, everyone would have woke right back up. We wouldn't have even had the ability to have the authentic experience of what would it be like to be separate, to be apart, to be a body, to be frightened, to be scared. It's been a pretty rich experience, but we don't have to continue. We can stop whenever we'd like. So what is it that binds us one to another? And I love this. He doesn't tell you what it is. He says, is it not the silence and the awareness of the one who observes the arising and passing away of all created things? Because if he simply said, this is it, I can assure you the thinking mind would say, Jeshua said it's this, I now know what reality is, and you just never look for yourself. He's asking it as a question because he's inviting you to find out for yourself. He's asking you to explore the question so that you, in truth, in your own direct experience, become the one answer to that question. This pathway is not intending to tell you the truth, just like the Course in Miracles wasn't designed to teach you what love is. It's simply to point you to the place where you will go here without fear. And you will surrender into peace as peace. Whew. So I share with you the depth of a perfect silence. In almost every lesson leading up to this, he has spoken of his and our perfect equality. Because he's trying to get rid of these ideas, much that came from religion, like that he was the one Son of God and the rest of us were red-headed stepchildren or something, and, we were supposed to become like him, or he was the one that was going to save us all. He's saying you're already saved. You're already just like what I am. We are not different in any way whatsoever. Whew. I share with you a wisdom supreme. I abide as you are, the thought of love in form. And then he goes on to say, form doesn't mean the body. It only means that mind which reality, which is love's existence, is shared with us all equally. And then he drops the truth bomb that if you really understand this, will help unwind you. How many of you have found your way to this pathway or another, or to a teacher that you say, that resonates really deeply with me. I know that what they're saying is true. I mean, I feel it. I know it beyond I like their words, or I like their demeanor, or I like they're funny or whatever. You couldn't know that if you didn't already know what the truth was. If you didn't have an unlosable knowing of the truth, you then couldn't know any of this was true. And you only know it because you've never lost that truth. Because you abide in it all the time. If you'll learn to trust that and really follow that, knowing, my knowing can only be because I knew before. You can trust that. Because if you didn't know that it was true, how could you have a feeling, that's true, I know this? You couldn't. You wouldn't. So you can trust that knowing because it's simply a remembrance of what already is and was, is now, and will forever shall be. So it already lives in you.
Remain with me now. Heed not the call of that part of the mind that would distract you and lead you back to the illusions that comprise your world. Here, there are no mates, no careers, no loss, no gain, no pain, no suffering. Here alone, the truth remains a shimmering within you. Here is where I am, and this heart that we share is not contained within your body. Rather, the body has emerged from within the power that resides in this holy place. It has provided for you only a temporary learning experience. It will be there when you return, should you desire it. But for now, give yourself permission to rest into the heart of all creation, the still and silent place of perfect peace. What is it that we share, if not awareness itself? For here, if anyone were to look, they would see there is no difference between you and myself. You are a shimmering field of awareness. And that same shimmering field comprises the essence of all that I am. And within this awareness lies the answer to every question you might choose to ask. Within this shimmering awareness is the assurance that the end of the journey is certain. Within this shimmering awareness, do you abide at one with all minds and every aspect of creation? Join with me here often in remembrance of me, for this is the secret of communion, to relinquish the perception of the world in favor of the acknowledgement of reality.
So he started with join with me here, then he gave you tips how to get there, he told you what it's not. He's pointing you to what it is with questions, which he does again here masterfully. What is it that we share, if not awareness itself with a question mark? Because he wants you to experience this for yourself. It's the only way you'll ever know. If you've got a concept of enlightenment, I can assure you, you're having to defend your concept of enlightenment. If you've got a concept of awakening, if you're one of those who sits back and says, well, that teacher's awake and that teacher's not, that's just more mindfuck. It's useless. So He's showing you the way, He's inviting you, and He's asking you if you'll actually do this, then might you choose to remain there and identify yourself as that infinite field of silence and stillness rather than this tiny stream of thought that you say is me. So heed not the call of the part of mind that would distract you back to the illusions that compromise your world, your identity, your history, your past, your future, your wants, your desires, your guilts, your shames, your everything. Heed not. He's saying, don't go fix it. Don't go say it's got to change. Don't go validate your blame of your parents. He's saying, heed it not. Let it be. Don't identify with it. You're not asked to fix it. You're asked to recognize the tricks that draw you up into identification and then let them go. Simply let them go. There are no mates, no careers, no loss, no gain, no pain, and no suffering. I don't know about you, but my mind said, well, then heaven must be a very boring place. Because we know ourselves through mates, through careers, through loss, through gain, through pain and suffering. It's not been a lot of fun, has it? I mean, there have been high points, but all of us are in this room or you found your way to this pathway because the soul said, I've had enough of time and space. I get it. Separation ain't no fun. I get it. I call uncle or I call father. I'm ready. I want to wake up. But there's peace. And I can assure you, peace comes at its own reward. And when you drink deeply of that peace, and you recognize and you see how long you may have ventured out into time and space, you will be damn grateful for the rest. You won't be pissed that there's no gain in heaven. You'll know that you were using all of the power all the time to create your game of mates, careers, loss, gain, pain, and suffering. That you did the whole thing to yourself. And then you'll join the rest of us in just laughing and being very deeply grateful. The truth remains shimmering within you, here where I am. And he's speaking as the I am. He's not saying there where Jeshua is. He's saying there where I am is, which is all of creation. It's only there that you can truly know, I see not where I end and the Father begins. It's only there that I and the Father are one, meaning there's one presence, not John Mark and God are one and I get to run around like a spiritual ego. There's only God. There's only one. There's only, it's the same thing. Indistinguishable. And then he says, the body has emerged from the power that resides within the holy place, the holy mind of God that can give birth to infinite creations. It has been provided you a temporary learning device, a temporary experience. I think for a whole lot of beings on this planet that are waking up, we've had enough of the temporary experience of experiencing ourselves as bodies in a world based in fear. I think we're ready to, if you still choose to play in a body, be birthed into a world of love, of freedom, of joy. So, the really interesting thing is that we didn't so much pull a veil over our eyes so that we wouldn't recognize the truth. We created the ego as a distraction, as a substitute. So we drew our awareness away from what we were and became identified with the thinker in our minds. And then we created the body so it would really seem real. Just amazing stuff. Give yourself permission to rest into the heart of all creation. He's made it very clear in every one of His pathways. God doesn't choose when someone wakes up. You choose when you stop playing. You choose when you choose to rest. If God was the picker, it'd be a cruel God. That's what the ego wants you to say. And for those who perceive themselves as unawake, that's what they often tell themselves. Well, why did that schmuck get it and I haven't gotten it? What about me? What about me? What about me? Will you abandon the what about me? Will you abandon the becomer? Will you abandon the thinking and simply give yourself permission to rest into the heart of all creation? It's the death to the ego, but it's the only death that ever can occur, and it's only a psychological one. It's only a mental one. So again, he asked with the question, what is it if we share, if not awareness itself? Question mark. Find out for yourself, please. Don't create a lousy substitute in thinking about it, and the ego will offer them to you. Because if you look right now, the ego will be glad to tell you a definition of awareness. And it'll be glad to claim itself as awareness with a bunch of thinking. And it's easy to take that bait. It's really easy to take that bait. So, if anyone would look, of course, there's no difference. Whew. So in this awareness lies the question, the answer to every question you could ask. Because, of course, it's the field of all intelligence. But peace, the ego is insistent that peace will come when all my questions are answered. And they're all answered to my satisfaction. Peace comes when you're willing to stop asking the questions. When there's no question, you already have your answer. When there's no desire to rise up out of silence and ask a question, there's already peace. But he will get to it later. If you want to ask lots of questions, you can. You're free to do it that way if you want. Within this shimmering awareness is the reassurance that the end of the journey is certain. So certain that it's already done. So certain that the kingdom just is. Heaven hasn't actually been separated. The dream hasn't actually occurred in reality to create a separation that was real. You abide at one with all minds and every aspect of creation. So I know my mind had a concept that that would mean I would hear all of humanity's thinking all at the same time. But that's not what's true that we share as one. That's 7 billion separate illusions. What you will hear is the incredibly still and joyful silence that is radiating within each and every mind. It's just not recognized by the vast majority. Join with me often in remembrance of me, which is, by the way, in remembrance of you, in you remembering the truth of yourself. For this is the sacred communion, and communion means common union. Back to the like conjoined thing. It's a common union that can't be uncommon, that can't be special or unique or indifferent or different. To relinquish the perception of the world in favor of the acknowledgement of reality. So you relinquish your perception and your attachment to the world that you call me, made up by the incessant thinking that happens within your consciousness, in the acknowledgement of reality. And how do you do that? Not by more thinking, not by more efforting, but by a true rest and relaxing, a true letting go that's not an efforting at letting go. You know, many people come and I say, well, what if you just rested? What if you just relaxed? What if you just let go? What's the first question? How do I do that? So you've been given it. He's even given you tips of, if you wanted to know how, he's given you a couple of suggestions. But there's the mind going, oh no, I can't actually do that because that'd be the end of me. But please give me a strategy. Give me something I can go work harder at in order to arrive at the place I actually already am. Relinquish the perception. No longer judge it. No longer need to fix it. No longer push against it. And when he was channeling the Course through Helen, he said, if you're in a desert and it's desolate, just leave. Don't try and make the desert into the kingdom, which is what we try and do with our thinking. We try and make our separate desert of thought and our world of fear and separation and loss and judgment and death. We want to make that into the kingdom. He's saying, just leave. Just stop it. For those of you who are here Friday night for our dialogue, just stop it. Without efforting to stop it. Without creating new strategies to stop it. Because you get a chance with this, even if you don't do it consciously, when the body's dying, you're not going to be able to stop it. You're going to have to relax. You're going to have to let go into it. So even at death, there's a doorway. If you don't want to take this doorway, you're going to get another chance. And if you remember this talk at that time, then you can just let go without letting go. Of myself, I can do nothing. I'm not in control here. I'm not the maker and the doer.
Mind reaches out forever, but it reaches only to itself. Therefore, every word that I share with you is already present within you. Here does love abide alone, and there is no space for anything unlike love. This is why every loving thought is true, for it arises not from the superficial or the surface level of the mind that generates thoughts merely in reaction to other thoughts. But love emerges from the depth of the heart that transcends what you know to be your body and your mind, your feedback mechanism. When you think a loving thought, you have been caressed by the touch of God. When you hear not loving thoughts within yourself, this can only mean that you have returned to the surface and have denied the depth within you. If you would then hear only loving thoughts, simply observe where your attention is and allow it to settle deeply into this place, beyond time, beyond the body, beyond the dream of the world. For this place, the kingdom of heaven within you, is vast beyond comprehension. The world you know, when you take your attention to the surface of the mind, is contained within it and is embraced within this heart, like a dewdrop begins to be consumed by the ocean that receives it.
Course in Miracles, he said there's nothing outside of you. That's the one lesson you must learn. Mind reaches out forever, but reaches out to itself, the same thing. That there's nothing outside of mind, and all of creation is happening within the mind of God, and it'll never be anywhere else because there is nothing else. Another one of the symbols he used to try and describe this is ideas leave not their source. And of course, we're not talking about my mind, the one you would think is yours. We're talking about the mind. Whew. So every word I share with you already exists within you. People think that we come into this incarnation without any knowledge whatsoever, that we're a baby born and we know nothing. And we set about this lifetime of learning. It's like you get a scratch-off ticket that's covered. All the intelligence is already there. Just when you go to algebra class, you scratch the little veil away and whoa, there's what I knew already is the mind of God. And then you scratch off a little more and you think you're learning, but all you're doing is releasing the idea that it was there all along. So when you truly begin to open to infinite intelligence is within me now, it's the very nature of my being, and you abandon all the thinking-based stuff which said, I have to learn because I don't know. Of course, that I is the thinker. When you rest into I as the mind of God, some pretty miraculous things can start to happen within your consciousness, and they may get expressed out in the world. And you too will say, my Father does these things. I have no idea how this happens. But that's all already there within you. Everyone here has experienced revelation. Rosie Maria has been spending quite a bit of time with us, and she's been experiencing it like popcorn. She's like, this just dropped in. Now, he's talking about a thought being birthed up. Forget the up or down metaphor, but we all have this knowing when a thought drops in from outside of the me. I would never have thought this. And it comes with its own like vibrational knowingness. You know, you recognize this is true and it wasn't sourced within my, brain-mind thoughts. You just know it. That's being birthed. That's God kissing you, for gosh sakes. That's God itself answering your prayer to awaken by birthing those thoughts within you. You can learn and come to rest in this place of silence where those are the only things you experience. That's what He's inviting us to. Do you think He contends with a lot of ego thoughts? Jeshua, I'm referring to. So, but if you just watch, one of those thoughts will drop in. The recognition that came from Spirit is momentary, and a minute later the ego has grabbed that thought, claimed as its own, and it's now getting a whole new strategy about how to incorporate that thought, how it can take heaven and bring it to itself and claim it as its own. It does it all the time. Because its life depends on it. Because it'll say, oh my gosh, I just got this revelation and now I know, I get it. To try and keep you identified with the stream of thoughts so you just won't simply turn with all your being and rest into that infinite intelligence which is calling you back by dropping those thoughts in your consciousness. At some point you're going to want to stop claiming those as yours and you're just going to abandon and know, well, they're mine in the first place. I'm going to abandon the body-mind thoughts, the thinker thoughts, and you're just going to rest back into this and accept that it's yours, that that's your inheritance. Whew. Love emerges from the depth of the heart that transcends what you know to be your body and your mind and your feedback mechanism. Everybody's experienced it. He talked about it in the Course in Miracles. We want to bring the light into our illusion. We want to have heaven and claim it as mine. And he says you can't do that. We have to bring our darkness to the light, and then the darkness disappears. The ideas that I'm a body, the ideas that I have to learn, the ideas that I'm temporal, all those things disappear in the truth that gets revealed in the depth of the sanctuary of the heart of Christ. So I was talking to Rosie Maria the other night, and she was talking about just this growing excitement and this longing, this desire for God. And I said to her, what if that's God reaching to you and your body-mind is co-opting that and saying it's the body-mind wanting God? It's God's caress saying, yes, come now. And the body-mind interprets that and goes, oh, I want God so bad. Again, taking the movement of spirit within your being and claiming it in His mind and turning it around, and rather than it being, I just got caressed by God, and God's this close, it's this present, we then turn it into a longing which will have to be fulfilled in the future. and we said, thank you for the invitation, God. I'm going to make this my own. I'm going to repurpose it to seek you later. I don't want to hear from you anymore. This kind of thing happens all the time, and we don't recognize the trickery that we're playing on ourselves by our incessant identification with the thinking. So if you desperately want God, God's desperately trying to get your attention. If you're in love with God, God is in love with you. It's that movement that's then getting distorted within the perceptual world of your creation and getting used for a defense mechanism. Might you simply rest? When you hear loving thoughts, when you hear not loving thoughts within yourself, this can mean that you have returned to the surface and have denied the depth within you. So when you're at the surface and you're hearing the ego's shitty thoughts, of course, then the ego says you're bad for these thoughts, you're guilty for these thoughts, you better fix these thoughts. Damn, you're playing ping pong with yourself, back and forth just constantly. The answer is to not take the bait and rest back into the depth of the truth. The ego's not supposed to be fixed. It's not your responsibility to make the desert into an oasis. You're simply asked to leave. He says the way is easy and without effort. And in case you haven't noticed, the thinking mind has a shitload of effort and a whole lot of plan and strategy about it. If you would then hear only loving thoughts, simply observe where your attention is. His teaching, be vigilant for the kingdom. I and the Father are one. Rest in this space. Start with the truth. The ego takes that teaching and becomes vigilant for itself. And we become vigilant for the thoughts. We put all our attention on the ego itself, on the thoughts, on the thinking, on the judgment, on the, oh my God. That's not the vigilance he was talking about. That's not the vigilance he was asking for. If you find yourself vigilant there, stop. Rest. Stop and rest. Whew. Settle deeply into this place, beyond time, beyond the body, beyond the dream of the world. For this place, the kingdom of heaven is within you, and it is vast beyond comprehension. And if you get a really deep taste of that, you won't want to go back to the little tiny thinking mind because you'll know it can never comprehend it anyway. You might as well give up that game and just rest into being it effortlessly. Because God will be being it as you. Always has been, always will be. The world you know when you take the attention to the surface of your mind is contained within this field. Even your dream of separation is held in this great mind of God, letting you dream your tiny little dream, all the while knowing it's not true. And you'll stop when you've had enough. I mean, we can founder ourselves on the ego pretty quickly when you really get authentic about it. So it just kind of disappears. The more you rest into that space, the less. I was talking to Debbie about this beforehand. She's like, it just doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop. It just keeps coming. It just keeps coming. Well, imagine that mind is like a ceiling fan. And you're just looking at the ceiling fan like you're looking at the thoughts. When are they going to stop? Get a shot of the ceiling fan. I'll put it in the movie. When are they going to stop? When is that damn thing going to stop? The thing is, you've forgotten that you're the one who can move your attention from that, insisting that it stop, to the switch which is power in it, and just turn it off. Choose again. Choose again. Choose again. Let's see what's next.
Here then, beloved friends, is the place of all certainty. Here the place of perfect power to fulfill the loving thoughts with which your Creator has caressed you. Here the way to fulfill each loving vision. Here the source of all wisdom upon which you can draw to recreate yourself to be the presence of Christ incarnate. Here then is the straight and narrow path that leads unto life. For life is beyond every concept you have ever heard, even those that I have used to communicate with you. They have been like so many fingers pointing at the moon that shines its light gently upon you. That light lives in the depth of a silent heart. Therefore, silence is the doorway to divine wisdom. Remain with me here. Do not think on what you hear, but allow it to pour through you, knowing that the vibrations of wisdom that these words carry will leave their trace upon you without the least bit of effort on your part. You need only be as a lover to the mind of God, opening, allowing, receiving, taking in that which your Creator would bestow upon you. Remain with me in the depth of this perfect silence. Notice how you begin to feel a gentle spaciousness, a peace descending upon you like a gentle dove, and yet you have done nothing. And again, should you feel your attention being pulled back to the surface of your awareness, merely choose again and return to the quiet of the heart. I am loved. I am loving. I am lovable forever.
I'm going to start this one at the end. I am loved, I am loving, I am lovable forever. He uses this in the remainder, the second half of this meditation, to create a stair step. A way to move from the surface of your mind, I'm a schmuck, I'm my body, I'm this, I'm that. I am loved, I am loving, I am lovable forever. And if you use that as your recognition, I'm up here, I don't want to be there, I'm just going to drop down into the truth, this vibrationally will help that drop happen. This doesn't then become a mantra with which you fill the silence, but it will help make that movement. It will help pull the Velcro apart from you and the ego thinking mind and help the drop happen. But we'll talk a lot more about that next week. So here then, beloved friends, is the place of all certainty. Here is the place of perfect power to fulfill the loving thoughts which your Creator has caressed you with. Because the movement, when the thought came in Yeshua's consciousness to step upon the water, knowing that that thought was birthed from God, he knew that it would come with whatever power, whatever mystery, whatever would be needed in order to fulfill that thought. I mean, don't you have a thought and recognize I have no power whatsoever to fulfill it? Because we're thinking not with the mind of God. We're thinking with our will, not God's will. So that which is birthed from the mind of God is going to come with all that it needs in order to give that expression. When you're wholly identified with that and know that that is the mind of God within you, the mind of God that's doing everything in creation, which can manifest miracles because it's all that is anyway. You need do nothing. If you leave something for the thinker, the body mind, to be the maker and doer of, the only thing you've left it with is separating you from the kingdom. Period. It's the only job you've given it. Whew. Here's the way to fulfill each loving vision. He talks about this earlier in the pathway, how when he began to awaken, because he was abiding in this space, he started seeing things in his consciousness that he couldn't believe. He started seeing healings. He started seeing things that he would never understand. How do you think he said, in 3 days I'll tear this temple down and rebuild it? He had already seen the crucifixion and the resurrection. He already knew it was coming. So you want certainty. Do you recognize the certainty with which he could move into and allow the crucifixion to happen? Because he had already seen the resurrection. He already knew the purpose behind the whole thing was to demonstrate the presence and the power of God, and that life is eternal and that there is no death. Anyway, here the source of all wisdom upon which you can draw to recreate yourself to be the presence of Christ incarnate. You will draw upon that which is, which will express through you as its very self. This won't become a new creation plan for the thinker. It'll be your I and the Father are one expression into the world. But again, the point he's making, as you are creating yourself as ego, it is you that will recreate yourself as Christ incarnate, as the truth. It won't come to you, it'll come through you. Here then is the straight and narrow path that leads unto life. Oh, hallelujah. For life is beyond every concept you've ever heard, even those he uses. He said it in the Course in Miracles. This is an illusion. It may be a beautiful one, it might be a necessary one, it might be one that we fall in love with, but we even let all that go. They're all just pointers. When you arrive at the destination, you don't need your nostalgia map, because you'll know you'll never leave again. And you won't venture back out into the illusion to bring others. You will beckon them from the kingdom, resting in that truth. It's just magnificent. So that light that lives in the depth of your silent heart, therefore, silence is the doorway to wisdom divine. And I've talked about this before. Many people think silence is the destination. So they get to silence and they create a box in their consciousness to just have this perfect still, perfect silence. And they're blocking out the wisdom of God. Perfect silence and perfect stillness is your total relaxed openness of your consciousness to let God wisdom you, inform you, reveal itself, yourself to you, that then it might express through you. But many folks misunderstand that they think silence is the destination. It's not. It's the doorway to all that is. So it's about getting in silence and opening to the revelation of God, not getting in silence and pushing out all communication, all thought. Because initially they will still come to you as thoughts which you could say are words. But you'll know they have a different source. And the deeper you go, they'll then become almost energetic packages, like holographic, in a bam, you'll know something and you'll know it in its completeness and in its wholeness. So silence is not the destination. It's the doorway. It's the bridge. So please don't think this is about getting to silence. It is about getting to silence and not identifying with, thinking, or giving your attention to the the surface thoughts, the body, mind, ego, brain, body, mind thoughts. But it's not about getting into silence and then blocking out the mind of God. It's rather getting into silence and let your silence be your yes to God. Your silence is the ultimate expression of your willingness. So remain with Him here, remain with Him here, remain. He says, join, 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 join. Giving you a pretty good sales job on what's the benefits of joining. And then He's asking, well, remain with me here. What do you got to lose? I mean, come on, it's the whole kingdom. Remain with me here. Do not think on what you hear. Don't pore over this. Don't take this and now create a strategy. And if you watch your mind will have a strategy about how to do this. It pores over it, which is doing that so that you won't drop in. You won't relax. Because its life depends on keeping your attention to it. And if it can come up with these really great plans or tell you what life will be like when, all of that, great excitement even, so that you won't rest. Knowing that the vibration these words carry will leave their trace upon you. Where do you think these words are arising from? They are the words of God caressing you, inviting you back to the awareness, the place that you've never left. You only need to be a lover to the mind of God, opening, allowing, receiving, taking in that which your Creator would bestow upon you. A bestowal is a gift. It's not a fucking paycheck. It's not a I earned this. It's not I'm worthy of it. It is a gift. Worth has nothing to do with this. Earning has nothing to do with this. Opening, allowing, and receiving. That's the way is easy and without effort. The burden is light, the yoke is easy. Same thing. Remain with me here in the depth of this perfect silence. And notice how you begin to feel a gentle spaciousness. He's saying notice. Don't go, oh my God, I'm feeling this gentle spaciousness. And then try and take those thoughts to mean you're experiencing a gentle spaciousness. Just notice. You can notice without commentary. You can notice without the need for anything to be different. Notice spaciousness, a peace descending upon you. Because you're doing what? You're opening, you're allowing, you're receiving. Whew. And yet, you have done nothing. Can you allow yourself to actually receive God's bestowal, which is God's own self as you, without you thinking you got to earn it or do it or get it right? Just receive it. Because it's already been given. We just stop our incessant denial of it. Whew. And should you feel your attention pulled back to the surface of your awareness, which you will, it's like spring-loaded. It's like automatic. Whoosh. I mean, it's just been so conditioned there, so habituated there. You know yourself as that. It's just a habit you have to break. I mean, the thing that I like to share with people, which oftentimes is a real opening, is you've mastered putting your attention in one place and holding it there for decades. you're really good at putting your attention in one place on the me, the thinker, and holding it effortlessly. You don't go around every day forgetting who I am. You don't go around forgetting yourself. So you already know how to do this. You already do it with great, great mastery. It's simply you move where you put your attention, and you bring the same mastery to peace that you once brought to me. You bring the same vigilance for the kingdom that you have placed on the thinker. So you already have all the tools, and you already have great mastery. It's just a matter of choice. Where do I put my attention? So it'll take practice. And like anything else, I don't know if anybody in here has been a smoker or a drinker or sex addict or had any kind of socially inappropriate or socially taboo behavior that you wanted to change. It takes some vigilance. It takes practice. I can assure you this practice, if you want to even call it practice, has the best payoff could ever imagine. So as soon as you spring load your awareness back to the ego is going to greet you with, dumbass. You're never going to get this right. Why can't you get this right? You suck at meditating. This silence thing sucks. This is too hard. Screw this pathway, blah, blah, blah. And the ego will immediately want to come into judgment of your seeming inability to rest in this place. Rather than take its bait, merely recognize that its judgment is giving you the opportunity to recognize, oh, I'm in the wrong place. So you turn even the ego's strategy of judgment and condemnation to your advantage, and you say, oh, thank you. That tells me I'm in the wrong place. I am loved. I am loving. I am lovable. Oh. And you just leave. And you may do this 100 times. You may do it 10,000 times. I have no idea how many times I did this before something switched, something happened. The spring-loaded mechanism started pulling me the other direction. So don't buy the entertaining the ego stuff anymore. Use it to your advantage to remind you, I'm in the wrong place. And switch. Not by efforting a lot, but by giving up the effort. Not by accepting the ego's judgments, but by recognizing they're meaningless and resting. I am loved, I am lovable, I'm loved, I am loving, I am lovable forever. And so it is. So come back next week if you're interested. We'll finish the deepening to this channeling where he'll kind of give you that stair step using that very brief couple of words. Because in case you haven't noticed, where would those three things arise from? I am loved, I am loving, I am lovable forever. That would be the mind of God reaching out to you in gentle reminder. You don't even have to be the one to think those. They're going to come of God's will. Will you follow them? Will you receive them? Will you open to them? Or will you create a strategy, a plan to manipulate them? It's up to you. But come back next Tuesday if you're interested. We're going to continue and finish the deepening of this lesson number 11, a meditation into the heart of Christ. Does anyone have questions or comments? We'll be right back. Yes, you bet. Softly and gently. Sandra's singing, softly and gently, Jesus is calling. You're damn right. So after you get all the way through this, and if you haven't, I encourage you to begin to listen to this meditation. Listen to it, not study it. Just let it drop in a couple of 3 or 4 times. And then just watch over the next couple days how many times I'm loved, I am loving, I am lovable forever arises in your consciousness, there's God trying to say, okay, I gave you the meditation. Now I'm reminding you, I'm helping. Will you recognize that that's me calling to you, calling you home, not you strategizing? So anyway, go ahead, Gail.
So apparently I've had some confusion about the concept of sitting as Christ. Maybe that's not a concept, but sitting as Christ. So so it's been a little difficult for me because I'm thinking, okay, now how do I think of myself as Christ creating? And then I start thinking about how I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously that's just wrong. So do I just go into silence?
That's what I do generally.
Well, then that's pretty.
I mean, what I do is I call it tuning in. I'm in that vibration, and then I'm with what arises. So what arose today during that 5 minutes was the Word of God being spoken within my consciousness about each and every one of you, acknowledging the truth and the divinity of each and every one of you. Now, I could try and have a meditation of silence where I would push the voice of God out of my consciousness. But then I would have missed hearing the Father speak of His holy child in whom He's well pleased. Do you see what I mean? So I opened and received what came rather than me being the thinker of it. So just going to silence is missing the point. Abiding as Christ is resting in God's mind and seeing how you're informed. Do you see what I mean?
So basically go into a state of receiving. Would that be?
Yeah, without trying to go into a state of receiving.
Right.
I mean, without creating a strategy about it.
Right.
Because the ego can give you, here's my 5-minute script of how great I am and infinite I am as Christ, but you still don't know how the stars are held up. You still don't know how anything's happening in your body.
Right.
So it's resting in that and receiving the grace that will illuminate you.
Seems pretty subtle.
It's very subtle. I mean, this is the paradox. This is why it's called the razor's edge, the eye of the needle. How do I not do when all I know myself as is a doer? You know, what's the sound of one hand clapping? How do you dry yourself off while you're in the stream? I mean, the hardest thing we do is quit, is stop, because that's the one thing we don't know how to do. And the ego doesn't want to do. So it's about just letting go. So for 5 minutes, I'm going to relax my attention and awareness from the thoughts of my world, from my thinking and my creating. Father, what is the truth here? Illuminate my thoughts. Illuminate my consciousness. And then be willing to see what comes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, if you want to quicken your journey of remembrance, I love hanging out with my brothers and sisters who are close to remembrance, who have chosen to awaken. You're welcome to come and sit. I don't have an agenda. I just listen. And the mind of God moves me and speaks. And it's pretty damn miraculous. And it's really cool. If you want to have one who wakes come and do a plurk shop in your area or do a retreat, a plurk shop, it's more play than work. So we call them plurk shops. This is my plurk. If anyone thinks this is work, you're missing it. So we'll come do a plurk shop in your area. Love offering, I give all of this away. I abide in the kingdom, and that doesn't mean, by the way, that money just falls out of the air. I'm hoping it's going to fall out of your pockets, and I'm asking you for a love offering. But this is all that I do, is extend love in this ways. I don't have a job. I'm not out in the world, suffering to survive. I'm asking for your loving support. If you're so moved, would you please tune in, drop down, and ask, what would you have me contribute here? There's a basket on the other side of the fireplace. If you're watching online, you can go to onewhowakes.org, click the Give button in the upper right-hand corner, and you can make a PayPal donation. We take credit cards on PayPal. You don't actually have to have a PayPal account, or if you want, you can send us a check. One Who Wakes is a nonprofit, so we're happy you can take the donations off your taxes. And if you have a business, Cindy and I used to have a business, we were always looking for tax write-offs to kind of, give away more money than you give to the government in taxes. So if you're interested in a larger donation, we would welcome it. I'm so grateful that I chose to listen to that voice that began to speak to me, that kept calling me home, calling me deeper, calling me out of the identification of myself as the thinker. I'm grateful to Jeshua for answering my prayer, and I'm grateful to our Father who gave us the freedom and the power to even have this crazy dream. That's just a beautiful symbol that God's love is unconditional. We can even think we can do the impossible, and we're still held in eternal grace. That's love. That's not, here's your inheritance, but don't do this with it, and don't do that with it. It's, here's your inheritance, do whatever you'd want with it, and I've always got you. Cool. We love you. What's that?
So if you understand love, basically it's the answer.
Well, if you understand love, that's a great doorway to stepping across the threshold to embodying love. Understanding love is not going to do it for you. You can understand it and you'll feel some gnaw that's not fulfilled. You'll feel some emptiness. It's not an intellectual understanding. I invite you into the embodiment of love. Anyway, we love you with an absolutely infinite love and a perfect peace because it's what you are already. I am loved, I am loving, I am lovable forever. I am that I am. Peace and a joyful good night.